I coach about 20 heads here in South Gloucestershire and a few others around the country. The sort of pressures that they're encountering, long hours and chronic fatigue, is probably, pretty common. Conflicts, complaints and disputes with parents, that's the sort of thing that people can lose sleep over, especially when it's unpleasant. Difficult relationships with staff or governors is, that's too close to home, and that's where someone independent, someone who can offer a fresh perspective can be very helpful. And in this last year particularly, there's been a sense of tension between the strategic responsibilities of leadership and the operational imperatives of every day. Not knowing whether to do the urgent, which can't be ignored, at the expense of getting perspective and being strategic and making sure that things are heading in the right direction in the longer term. When we're talking about how to look after head teachers' mental health and well-being, the partnership and the relationship with governors is crucial in everything the head's doing. The quality of that relationship is going to have a major impact. The critical friend that's supportive at the same time. What heads don't need is to be left to do it all for themselves with a governing body that's more or less dependent on them to see it all and do it all. Heads need to be asked challenging questions in order to feel safe, and their well-being will be stronger for knowing that their governors are checking up, they've got their backs, they've got their eye on the ball as well, not just leaving it to the head. I think that's very important. In this time of crisis, the partnership between leadership and governance becomes so critical, because it may be necessary to take decisions which appear to be against the guidance that's coming from politicians and central government. It may be the best thing for the community. So my feeling was that schools and their communities where they were working well together, and especially if they were involving parents in some of those key decisions about how much to open, whether to phase return, whether to have blended learning, if you could involve parents, governors can play a big role in inviting the community to come together, back the decisions that are being made because they've been involved in them. I've been coaching head teachers for about 6 years now. What a coach does is help to clarify the thinking through, help to create the perspective where the sense of overwhelm can start to dissipate. A head might be feeling better, a lot better, just because they've had the chance to offload and they've said what they hadn't been able to say to anyone else, because everyone near them has got an agenda of their own. And a coach is independent. It acts at the emotional well-being level. It acts at the intellectual level of helping with clarity. A governor's strategy for supporting the well-being of their head teacher, as its starting point, it would have an audit. First of all, do you audit your head teacher's well-being? That's what I want to know from a governing body. And if the answer is no, well, how might you go about it? What impacts positively on your well-being, school leader? There might be different emphases with each individual head teacher. Next question, what impacts most negatively on your well-being? Why don't all governors ask them and find out? And then the next step is, well, okay, how can we mitigate them? Or how can we increase the availability of these things, which you say will help you flourish? I'm not going to say I have a prescription for parental involvement or a strategy for it. There are enough parents in almost every school I know. It might be a self-selecting few who do everything, but there'll be enough parents with real goodwill to come and be the representatives of the rest of the parent body and support decision making so that it doesn't all rest on this one pair of shoulders. Looking after your head and helping that person to be there for as long as you want them to be, it actually feeds back into a potentially virtuous circle of school improvement, because the way in which energy is harnessed in the community through everybody feeling that they are flourishing and their well-being is part of the agenda, it can be transformational for a school.